all of a sudden anything progressive seems to be anti-culture or, it's Western.
Boys are confident because of the upbringing, because of the expectations set for them. And it's the same for girls. If you constantly tell your girls, oh, you cannot do this, you cannot speak here, then obviously they're going to grow up silent.
Sierra Leone will not get to its development goal by not investing in women and girls in this country. It will not happen. I don't care if we're at this for the next 100 years. The development goals that we want for this country, it's not going to happen.
We've seen some intentionality
Absolutely.
in terms of bringing women and girls at par, but obviously we're not there yet.
So if you're reading from the Bible and you're saying, oh, but she came from the rib of a man, yes, but there's nowhere that it says that, and that made her unequal. And if you take it to top level discussion of why we've never had a female president in Sierra Leone, is it because there are no women who are capable of being presidents?
Welcome to Honestly Speaking, the podcast where we have honest conversations about the issues shaping our lives. I'm your host, Antonia Howard, and today we're talking about patriarchy. Patriarchy is a social system where men control a large share of social, economic, political, religious power. Men control the power, basically. And in Sierra Leone, when we talk about development, we often name corruption, nepotism, tribalism, as the things holding us back. But we rarely talk about patriarchy, which I think is one of the invisible systems holding that structure up. So in Sierra Leone, patriarchy shows up everywhere, in our laws, in our homes, in our politics. It shows up in every aspect of our lives. So we really need to talk about it and see whether it contributes to our progress or our underdevelopment. The question I'm asking today is patriarchy a barrier to progress? My guest today is Nicky Spencer-Coker. She is someone who has continuously used her voice and the law to challenge systems built to silence women. She is a lawyer, an activist, and a fearless advocate for women and girls. And she is currently the spokesperson for the permanent mission of Sierra Leone to the United Nations. Welcome to the podcast, Nicky.
Thank you, Antonia. It's great to be here.
I'm happy to have you here, and I'm glad to have you on this particular conversation. I said yesterday I was having a conversation with Dr. Aisha, and we talked about feminism to kind of just help people understand what it is about and get people curious to do their own research and to just understand the concept of feminism and why it's important.
Why we should all be feminists.
Exactly, why it's important to embrace feminism rather than fear it. So we introduced the concept of patriarchy as well. And so I think it's only right that we have another conversation so that people really see how these things show up in our day-to-day lives, right? So first question to you is, when you hear the word patriarchy or when you think about patriarchy, what do you think about, or how do you think it shows up? What would you say? How do you think it shows up in our lives here in Sierra Leone?
I think it shows up in big and small ways. And if I could give an illustration of it, funny thing just happened yesterday. My brother was recounting a story of our childhood, myself and my two brothers, and my sister, the younger sister, actually hadn't been born yet. So she was a baby at the time. So we were at this time we're talking about maybe in 10 or below, something like that. We only had 2 pairs of roller skates between the 3 of us. And so there would be 2 people there'll be one person roller skating on a full set of roller skates, and then the 2 other people would have one roller skate, the other person would have the other roller skates. I won't say which one of the three of us and how we did the distribution, but it varied. And so he was recounting this story, and my sister said, but why? He said, because my parents gave me, for Christmas, a chain and a bracelet, and gave them the roller skates. And my sister said, but she would be the one roller skating before the two of you. What's the big deal? It's because of the limitations that these constructs place on our lives, which end up having more of an adverse effect on girls and then women because, one, you become socialized to thinking that you shouldn't expect more, as well as society being socialized to think that girls should be here, boys should be there, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. And then that shows up as you go through life in the type of courses that you take when you're studying, to the type of expectations for jobs that you should have. And it really is not based on a person's competence or ability, but merely on what society believes should be your place. Yeah. Patriarchy means that those blinders are on our eyes, and the expectation of not putting as much resources into one segment as to the other, the expectation that the plumber's job should be, the visual of when you look at who's sitting at the table and it's all one look, right, versus another. That's the challenge, and that's the fight, and it runs up and the fight is along several lines. It's cultural, it's religious, it's legal, so it's all of those lines, and all of that is just based on expectations. And the thing of, well, that's the way it is. If you spend some time and you really delve into the conversation, is it really how it is? Does that really make a lot of sense?
What I usually say is, that's the way it is, but why? Yes. I don't think that a lot of people ask themselves the question about why it is that way. Okay, we agree that for a long time, we've never had a female president in Sierra Leone, but why? Do you think about why? Do you question why? Okay, now they're talking about female participation or women's participation in politics. Why do we need a law to just help give women a step up? Why? Do people really question and think about these things? That's what I always say. So if you're thinking about how patriarchy shows up, let's say in our laws, for example, because you're a lawyer, rather maybe I should frame it this way. What are some of the laws that you would say are highly patriarchal?
Well, the first thing you have to, I always, what I've been forced to do in Sierra Leone is always, things that might seem obvious to me, it's not obvious to everybody. So you have to start off from the first question or the foundation level of asking if the other person even sees that there's a problem. I think there's a problem that there's no female president in Sierra Leone, but that's my problem. It might not be your problem, right?
Exactly.
It's like somebody else might say, well, what's the issue with that? Why should that be a problem? So you have to start there.
Why? Say in a salon no more. You don't see woman presidents in America.
Exactly? Why should that be a problem? If you go back a little bit, so a lot of people say that our transformational legislation or laws in Sierra Leone have come out of our experience from the war, right? TRC report had a lot of things in there, and we started on this progressive, from the global perspective, Sierra Leone has huge strides in terms of the movement of its legislation for the advancement of girls and women in this country. Sometimes the implementation lags behind it, but the thought process or the push behind it has been a lot of times transformational. So we're talking about coming from like 2007, those are famous, the gender laws that, really built in protections and laws for girls and women to move things forward, coming out of our experience with the war. That didn't happen, by chance. it happened because there was the experience of women and girls during the war and their activism that they came out of with that pushed the country forward towards these transformational pieces of legislation that have led to other things. You have to give credit where credit is due. Nothing happens without a fight anywhere, right? What does that do? So sometimes people will say, well, what's the big deal? Oh, women, they can be whatever in Sierra Leone. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have this. And you're pointing to a singular person in a position is very short-sighted, because you're looking at a 1% versus the 90%. Why these laws are important is because it is true and a fact that women and girls were in a disadvantaged position. And sometimes when you're working towards this leveling, you have to give somebody who's a little bit disadvantaged a bit of a step up to get to that positioning. Even when you do that, if the enabling environment is not there in terms of you give a step up to somebody, but they're walking into a hostile and toxic environment, they won't stay there. They will back away, because people all, want to protect their safety and their space, and sometimes this constant fight is just not worth it. We all understand that. But the fact of the matter is, Sierra Leone will not get to its development goals. That is a fact. You will not get there by not investing in women and girls in this country. It will not happen. I don't care if we're at this for the next 100 years. If we do not do the things that we need to do to ensure that girls and women are at an equal footing and be able to get to their highest potential, the development goals that we want for this country, it's not going to happen. All of us collectively as Sierra Leoneans have the equal opportunity and chance to get to our best potential. The country as a whole will not meet its development goals.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think over the last 10 years, we've made some good strides. We've passed some good policies. And we've seen some intentionality in terms of bringing women and girls at par with men and increasing access and opportunity for women and girls. But obviously, we're not there yet. So what are some of the key, because I know there are lots, but what are some of the key barriers that you see currently that are systemically holding women back in terms of access and opportunity?
But, the assumptions that come with that, that you have to always reassess yourself and your own self-worth and your own confidence. So you ask the question about what would be the barriers, why sometimes women are silent, they don't speak up. It's not that they're incapable, but if you're walking into a toxic environment in which you constantly have to fight and improve yourself, and you're attacked, your personhood your womanhood is attacked because you want to be in this position, or you speak up, or or you find, a lot of times I find there's a compensation. Women who are in positions of authority or power then also want to prove that they're still a woman, but I still take care of my home.
Still do this,
I still have children. So I'm still a woman. I still they cook for me, man. I'll work up until 9 p.m. But when I come home, I'm still going to be in the kitchen cooking. I'm not doing that, by the way. I'm not coming home at 9 p.m. and cooking you nothing, because we're both working and we're going to be tired, so we're going to have help.
Yeah,
but that's beside the point.
100%.
Yeah. So at some point you say, no, you have to know who you are, and you hope that there are enough examples of young women coming up, and there are enough examples for the society to see that this is a beneficial thing for all of us. So what are the barriers to the acceptance of some of these things? I think we see it being played out right now in terms of the Safe Motherhood and Reproductive Health Care Bill, and also with the push in Sierra Leone to finally remove FGM, especially for outlawing and banning it for children with the Child Rights Act amendment. It is always you may have the legislation and the political will, but it has to be translated to the awareness and the acceptance and the buy-in from this community as a whole. And that has to do with people, understanding that these laws, it's not harmful to you, to the society. It's not anti-culture. It's not anti-community. And that is the narrative that somehow seeped into our conversations, that all of this with patriarchy and everything, it gets mixed up in this religious conversation and this cultural conversation, and all of a sudden anything progressive seems to be anti-culture. And what is that? Or anything progressive is, it's Western.
I would say anything progressive for women and girls
is Western. It's a Western input. And really, if you know your history, you understand that these ideas really is not our culture. This was imposed. This was introduced. It is beneficial for all of us if both your girl and your daughter and your son are educated, if both your daughter and your son have an opportunity to decide what pathway they want to take in terms of education. Boys, sometimes they're so confident. They're so confident, sometimes it's like, it's just because you're the expectation that.
Yes, and I think people don't understand that boys are confident because of the upbringing, because of the expectations set for them, because of the constant push that they're getting from family members, or because they're constantly hearing, you're a boy, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. And it's the same for girls. If you constantly tell your girls, oh, you cannot do this, you cannot speak here, you cannot wear this, you cannot, then obviously they're going to grow up silent, and they're just shy. They're not going to have the confidence to speak up. And for girls who have that upbringing, who are taught to speak up, who are pat on the back when they do good, who are constantly pushed to do better, you see how they show up in the world. And so the question I want to ask now is, how does patriarchy use silence and shame as a tool to just keep the power and control in the hands of men?
Patriarchy makes the society for everyone dangerous. It makes it a dangerous place for everyone because of these expectations. Patriarchy comes with misogyny. Patriarchy comes with sexism. Patriarchy comes with a rape culture, because when one side has an expectation of possession to another side, that breeds a violent culture, and we see it show up in Sierra Leone in various kinds of ways. The society where we deal with multiple isms, multiple isms, and it's all somehow interconnected and interrelated. They're multiple isms. And then, you bring in religion into it, and you bring in cultural expectations into it. And sometimes that makes a very toxic mix. And for, young girls and women developing to sometimes stand outside of that and understand that some of the expectations put on them, aside from them not being realistic, can also be limiting. And no one loses if a girl or a woman is at her fullest potential. And that acceptance from the society as a whole is what is going to be beneficial for us as Sierra Leoneans. That you do not lose out if a woman is at her best. You're not losing out. Because she's able to speak her mind does not mean that, this is such a terrible thing. I mean, some women are superior to men. There's some women who are superior to other women. Yeah. That's just life. We're not all equal.
That's just
life. So because you're born...
And there are some men superior to other men.
That's
just life. Because
you're born a man does not automatically mean that you're superior to a woman. That's I mean, that's not how God ordained this planet. So if you're reading from the Bible and you're saying, oh, but she came from the rib of a man. Yes, but there's nowhere in there that it says that, and that made her unequal. It's not there. However she came, it does not mean, and it says nowhere, as far as I'm concerned, that the fact that, I'm just saying, if you're being literal,
Yeah.
it may say that she must do certain things, but it doesn't say that she's inherently, unequal, So I always like to circle back and bring in some of these conversations around, Christianity and the Bible, because you constantly have to sometimes challenge people's expectations. That's why I'll be the first to tell you, I'm a Christian, I'm not an atheist. And I go to church. And by the way, I sing in the choir. So, and this is how I was raised. And I'm the eldest child of 4, 2 boys, 2 girls. I have 2 daughters, and everything that I do, and people who know me know that I always have this thing I say for my girls. Or for my girls or for the girls. Yes, it's for the girls of Sierra Leone, but also it's for my girls, because I want them to come into a Sierra Leone and live in a Sierra Leone that I'm proud of, that I know recognizes them at their fullest potential. And if you take it to the most, it's not a superficial discussion, but let's say just top level discussion of why we've never had a female president in Sierra Leone. Is it because there are no women who are capable of being presidents? Is it? Come on now. Really?
Exactly.
Sierra Leoneans, you know your women. And you know that is not true. You know it is absolutely not true. And by the way, if we've been, however many years are we as an independent nation now? We're 60 what?
65?
65 years as an independent, is it 65?
64.
Oh, that's terrible. We can't remember how old we are.
And we just celebrated independence.
Tonya, we're going to hear it from the people that we don't know how long we are. Okay.
We will pull this part.
60 plus as a nation, and we've been headed up by men, and some very wonderful men. I think our current president, I'm going to include him in that, but is that to say that, having a woman as a president is going to be terrible? Because really, what have we had such a great time of it with only males? So I'm speaking purely from a philosophical standpoint. I mean, what has been so great that you can say that a woman will never be able to do that?
Offer, you know?
So I'm not running for office for anything yet or anytime soon.
It's out there.
But I'm just saying that, we need to stop that sort of, there are women at the highest levels of everything in Sierra Leone. If we talk about in the political landscape, let's talk about, how patriarchy shows up, for example, with our female members of parliament.
Yeah.
Who perhaps, if you speak to them, you'd be surprised at how hard they have it, whatever political party they're part of. You would think that a woman who has been elected to serve as the representative of her community, her constituency, would have the confidence, it would have she would be thought of on a par by her peers. That is not the case. They're fighting tooth and nail for respect within the walls of where they do business, which is within the parliament. Yeah. And sometimes you think that they don't need support, but of course they do need a lot of support from other women organizations. But it shows up even there that even when you have been elected by people to serve them and to speak for them, your peers somehow see you still as somehow less than.
Yeah, not worthy of.
And when they're giving, who should be the head of this community or that, why shouldn't a woman MP end up as the leader of, or Speaker of the House, for example, or leader of government business, or head of the legislative committee, whatever the case may be? What it makes anyone, if you're there now in this arena, right, when supposedly now we're all equal, but still it's playing out in those positions, right? What's going to happen? Why shouldn't we have at some point, let's say, chief of staff of for the president?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't that be a woman? Or, I mean, what I'm saying is you're throwing out these ideas and concepts because it's like people in Sierra Leone know that they're competent women for these positions. Why? Though,
I don't get it, because sometimes I feel it's absolutely contradictory how we think about women, because I know a lot of people, and I see even on social media how people celebrate their sisters when they graduate, how people celebrate. In fact, let's not even go into academia. Let's just say single mothers who have put their sons through school from primary school and they see how hard women work. They know that this economy in Sierra Leone is carried by women who go out every day, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. They know how hardworking women are, and they see examples in different spheres of life. But then, when it comes to
okay,
like,
one of my
going on
favorite
there?
women in Sierra Leone is a lady who she sells fish. That's her profession. That's her job, and she's done it for years, for decades. And our family has bought fish from her for decades. She sells to different people. But that woman has put 3 children through school, through university, off of her enterprise. She has done it. I admire her tremendously. And so I never understand why you would cease. I mean, like somebody like, you don't understand that's who's holding up this economy. That's who's holding up this economy. Those women who sit at Crewtown Road Market and who you see every day, you think you don't know what you're thinking. Those women are putting their children through school, building homes, doing all sorts of things based on the enterprise of their blood, sweat, and tears and their hard work, right? And so we're not even going to academia. This is who holds up your economy and your country. This is who does it.
Yeah.
And so, we in Sierra Leone have seen, yes, we have, our laws recognize the place and potential of girls and women in this country. The implementation and the execution of it may be lagging sometimes, but we do recognize it. And we do have an attempt, you see the will to exhibit this both nationally and internationally. And by the way, we're recognized globally for this. Patriarchy is not limited to Sierra Leone. It's a global thing.
Absolutely.
I see it played out even within the confines of the UN Security Council, where Sierra Leone now sits, and you see how many women permanent representatives there are versus how many male permanent representatives there are. Sierra Leone presents a beautiful picture at the United Nations in terms of the appointments of President Bio made for that UN Security Council, how we show up, in terms of the experts who are there at the permanent mission, in terms of now us having a deputy permanent representative who is a woman, and how we show up in terms of the face of it. We visually walk our talk of women, peace, and security and empowerment, right? That has to be the norm, I believe, in terms of the rest when we're at home as well. Sometimes we show it. A lot of times, for the most part, we're not quite seeing it. But it is a walk. And it always has to start and be maintained with that political will. And I pray that, that stays the course, because the transformation for our society is going to be a beautiful thing for all of us. Maybe sometimes right now they're like, you're trying to make me picking up go sit down at school with picky we get belly. I'm like, she's not gonna catch it. It's not like a disease, sometimes you have to have these conversations, and people just make these statements and they hold true to their convictions, and I get it.
But what I always say is, so you picking not go sit down at school with other picking we get belly, but you go one like you picking sit down at school with the person we give and the belly.
This is the thing.
Like,
This is the thing.
The belly not so immaculate
The one
conception.
we get the belly, not to the one where you get for free. Now the one we get the belly, now you get for free.
Like how do we come to this conclusion? Okay, the pikin don't get belly, but it don't get by magic. She got pregnant by someone. So you know one let you pikin sit on a class with person we get belly, but then you don't mind your child sitting in class with someone who impregnated someone.
Yeah. So it's it's layered. It's layered. And I will just continue to not believe, because I know that it is a limiting thing for us.
Yeah.
Patriarchy, it's like when I see it, I know it, right? I may not be able to explain it, but when I see it, I know it.
I just wanted to ask that because, like you said, it is not, even for me, it is not always as obvious.
No.
It shows up in many different ways. And sometimes, now after the fact, now you realize, that was actually quite not right, And so how can everyday Sierra Leoneans, how can they spot this patriarchy? Because it shows up, sometimes it's misogyny, sometimes it's sexism. How can people spot it, and how do they challenge it every day?
Because it's a system thing, it affects us all, right? So it's not like this is just it's for men or little example. For example, you didn't use, and this is a true story actually, which happened to me years ago. Had a nanny who I hired and misbehaved, basically got to be fired. Well, the misbehavior was kind of egregious because she dropped my baby at the time on the floor, and that could have been a disaster. She left her on a bed and disappeared, and all of a sudden, anyway, long story.
Yeah.
So you have to leave. Sorry, thank you very much. Found out later that she was drinking, but besides the point. Woman wouldn't leave. She says, I can't fire her. Only my husband can fire her.
Because so the boss.
Exactly. Only my husband. Really? I can't fire you? We'll find out today whether or not I can fire you. But I'm just saying, that's a funny example, but it shows up in those kinds of little ways. Or, your work at work, somebody who is the boss, or even in the home, the security guards or whoever will not take instructions from you, or will just give you a little disrespect because, well, how dare you, the woman, be giving me orders, So it shows up in funny kinds of ways, or sometimes women, they'll give stories, they say, oh, it's hard to work with women. It's not hard to work with women. It's just that she has to push through a lot more things. And so knowing that, she may be a lot more forceful because she knows that she's fighting against multiplicities. It shows up in all kinds of funny ways. The most obvious ways where things will happen where women are denied positions or opportunities. But those are the obvious ways. The subtler ways come in just how we interact as a society, the expectations, right? School plays. You have a school where the majority of the teachers, now in a primary school, the majority of teachers are women. So they're putting on a school play. Now, teachers, they're working people, aren't they? They're going to work. But the school play with these children, and they're talking about different professions. What does a woman do? Oh, she stays home and she takes care of the children. And you're looking and you're like, but you're a teacher and you're working and so I'm not saying that you should. And no one thought this was odd. Not even the teachers themselves,
because
who were putting on the play, right? So, and I'm not talking. This is not a hypothetical. This was a play in which the school that my kids were at, and I was sitting there watching it and looking at the teachers like. I'm not saying that this. Of course, women stay home and take care of children, but you're putting on, and then the man goes out and he works and he brings home, and I'm thinking, this didn't nobody thought this was odd? You're not home. You're at work.
You see, that's what I wanted to say, because I think there's a kind of acceptance here now in Sierra Leone, and I guess in many parts of the world as well, that this is not a problem. This is how it is. Everybody has their place, and this is the way. This is the system we operate in. So I worry sometimes that it's not going to be easy for Sierra Leone, especially when incidents like the one we were talking about earlier, the 57-year-old man and children, and it is not obvious to people that those are children and should be protected at all costs. And just because they're girls, they're being sexualized,
Right.
and just even more victimized because they're victims, and
Right.
you're constantly victimizing them even more because they're girls and they're in this man's house. So I worry sometimes that
But how do they get to the man's house? I don't know. I don't know the details.
I don't know the
I'm merely
details
going off
either.
of
I
what
don't know the
see being
details
reported,
either.
But that's my
But
question.
you
How
know
do
what
they
I
get
said?
there?
I said society has failed these girls. Their parents have failed them, and this has happened, and we're all still failing them because we're failing to accept that these are children, no matter how they look, because there's a video of them dancing and just being girls in the house of this man, and they're like, oh, na this one na pikinde.
Of course, they're
They're
children.
children. There's no other.
Children should be allowed to be children, have fun, and in an age-appropriate setting, and But you, as that man, have no business being there. None whatsoever. There's no excuse for it. None whatsoever. And so the response or the default shouldn't be, asking questions about the girls. Ask questions about the man.
Yeah.
So,
for you, are there signs you see in terms of our context here in Sierra Leone that give you hope that, we will get there? We will get there one day. Are there, what are some of the signs or things that give you hope?
I think what gives me hope is, young people. Because everything is generational, I think. And I think Sierra Leone, because of this the sort of the laws we've had over like you said, over the last 10 years, the public awareness raising, the focus on male toxicity and what that is, but also the focus on male elevation, the new group and crop of men who want to identify openly as feminists and work in that space, but not just work in the space, but speak in that space. And then looking at how young people interact with themselves, I think it's hopeful. Young girls, preparing young girls for a space in which they're going to thrive is important. And to do that, I think there's the recognition that's come over the last few years that the work and the focus has to be simultaneous on both girls and boys. Because if you're preparing girls for a different world, and the world they come into is one in which the boys haven't been prepared, then it's going to be butting heads constantly. But if the recognition now seems to be on, we need to spend some time on boys understanding these concepts, boys understanding why this is important for them, and how patriarchy damages them as well, how patriarchy makes them less present in the lives of their children when they become men, how patriarchy means that they're less in touch with their own self-worth, well-being, emotional space. And this has nothing to do with women, but that how this is detrimental to their own well-being and their own health, how you see in Sierra Leone who lives longer and who lives better and why, and how does that work out? Funny stories that people have all the time of, like, these women who, they get to whatever age and then they just disappear out of the home and they go live with their children and leave you to suffer by yourself because you were not a nice person when you were younger, right? And she's going to live now a happy and nice and free life whilst you're there, suffering by yourself, and nobody wants to be around you because you just weren't nice when you were younger, right? To her to her children.
I think also that conversation needs to be had more often about how patriarchy is not just, oppressive to women, it's also oppressive to men.
It's damaging.
It's extremely damaging to men. And I think perhaps a lot of men don't see it that way because they're enjoying the perks.
You have a few examples of some men who, work outside of that space, and how happy are they? How happy are they? They are happy. They are confident people in themselves, and if you're who know that seeing their partner or other women shine is not a reflection of or it's not detrimental to them. Having somebody else shine does not mean that you don't have to suppress somebody else in order for you to shine. And if your partner, your wife, your girlfriend, or whatever is thriving and competent, that is not, a negative to you, and there's some examples of that in our space in Sierra Leone, and you see how beautiful that is in terms of, I always look at it in terms of how men relate in their relationships with their children and their enjoyment of their children openly, understanding that when they're with their children, they're not babysitting. It's an equal thing. This is my child too, and I have just as much right and responsibility to this child. And and I look at it in the space of things like who cooking and why people are cooking and not cooking, because I don't know when it suddenly became a biological function of women to cook. It's not a biological.
We were born with Ibako.
Cooking is essential for you to live. I think the funniest thing is like when young boys go away to university or other places that you never gave your child that skill, and all of a sudden they got to be running around to live.
Cooking is essential for every single person.
Gotta live.
At some point in time in your life, you're going to be alone.
So it's not the rule or the appendage of don't cook, see if you survive, and guess what? Some men are better cooks. Some people enjoy
they call
it.
Them chefs.
But they're chefs for women too. But the point is, some people are better at other things. Some women are terrible cooks. Some don't enjoy it, so it's not a biological thing. It is just a life skill. Yeah. And of course, the way our societies have been set up, yes, those roles, because of, the fact that if one party is in one position, it's necessarily, okay, the woman was home, she was taking care of the kids, so in that you're set up with the family dynamics and rules. Yeah. But what happens in our, like, for example, in our more modern day, it's an economic thing as well. If you can afford it, no problems, and she wants to be there, then no. But a lot of times now it's just not economically feasible for the woman not to work. How do you, with that division of labor, how is it done? That, of course, that's a conversation within the family. But it's not inherent. And I think that's what we as a society have to look at and accept. Some of these constructs, you're not born being this, or you may have the biological features that you're born with, but the socialization is socialization.
And it is not compulsory as well for some of these things.
Doesn't make you a woman or less than, if you do this or you don't do that, you're more than or less than this or less than that, or because the man likes cooking, therefore he's less than a man, or because the man doesn't, want to be out and have, 10 or 1,000 different girlfriends, he's somehow less than a man. No, that's not how it works. And so that's how patriarchy shows up and damages both, because men then are trying to live up to certain types of expectations that may not be natural to them, but just because that's the way a man is supposed to be, or a man is not supposed to show his emotion, a man is not supposed to care about this stuff, or a man is not supposed to talk about this stuff, and then you have these pronouncements, and then when you look deeply into it, you see that it's all fake and lies. For example, men gossip more than women, any day, anyhow. So it's like, it's the funniest thing. It's like, oh, women, they always talk, and women, and when you really look at it, it's like, but men gossip a lot more than women. They talk, I mean, seriously, and that is the reason why, just to be facetious about it, everybody will know and find out when you've got your multiple partners as a man. But sometimes women, you will, for years, they'll be quietly doing it because they don't talk. So who gossips more? It's just funny stuff, right? But I'm just saying, these are the ways in which you have these supposed stereotypes. But when you dig deep, it's like, but are they really true? So why do these constructs or stereotypes come about? It is all rooted in this P word, in what it is. And it really is a systemic thing. It's about systems. It's about expectations. It's about beliefs about one sex versus the other sex. And I'm speaking purely as in the modern talk of binary, because that's where we are in our context: male, female, man, woman, girl, boy. When you say the one, you have a whole set of expectations for that one versus the other one. And sometimes they just don't bear out in reality and truth. And trying to restrict ourselves into expectations of what you're supposed to do because you're a woman and what you're supposed to do because you're a man sometimes mean that brilliant, talented people get boxed into places and they don't get to their full potential. And that's what patriarchy is about, locking you in to less than your fullest potential.
So to round up, I'll ask you what your dream is for Sierra Leone. What do you think a Sierra Leone without patriarchy would look like? A deep one.
A Sierra Leone without patriarchy would look like a place that has no FGM, FGC, whatever you want to call it, female genital mutilation, female genital cutting, because my belief, and I know people disagree, my belief is that that whole system is rooted in control of girls' and women's bodies, which is rooted in patriarchy. So an ideal Sierra Leone will be one without that. An ideal Sierra Leone for me is also one in which women will have full access to their sexual and reproductive health rights and choices, which means that a woman would be able to decide when, if, how, and how many children she has or doesn't have, right? That's an ideal Sierra Leone for me. An ideal Sierra Leone for me would be one in which the worth of a woman would not be based on whether or not she is tied or attached to a man, but just fully seeing her in her personhood. That's an ideal Sierra Leone for me. It may be utopia, but I know that's a Sierra Leone that we're going to get to because we're that type of people. We're dynamic people who may be stubborn at the beginning, but somehow see value in something, and when we walk into it, we embrace it fully. That may not be in my lifetime. I don't know. I actually thought it would be in my lifetime, but I'm not sure. But I know we're going to get there. And why I see that as an ideal Sierra Leone is because I know we're going to be better for it. We will be better for it. Our potential as people, this development that we're striving for, this position in the world in which we're able to take advantage and make use of our vast resources for the benefit of the greater majority of our citizens will not be possible without the full, equal, and meaningful participation of our girls and women. And that means all of us, envisioning a place in which bringing up someone else to level the playing field means that power has to be taken away from one side that has it unequally, but it's not a bad thing because equality is not a bad thing. Equity is not a bad thing. It will mean a better country for us all. the way we are right now, I mean, so if it's not working for all of us, if it works for a few of us, but not for all of us, it's not working. And so that's what I'm envisioning for Sierra Leone.
Thank you so much. I think we've had a really great conversation. Thank you for making time to be on the podcast.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, that's all we have time for in today's episode of Honestly Speaking. We've had a really great conversation here, and I hope that, as always, this is a seed for you to go and dig deeper and learn more and ask the right questions. Don't forget to, just share your thoughts and comments about what we've talked about here on this episode. And share with your friends, share with your family, and just have these conversations. Keep it going. I have been your host. My name is Antonia Howard, and we have been recording at Black Lion Production Studios. Until next time, see you. Bye. That's it for today's episode of Honestly Speaking. Thank you for listening and being a part of these important conversations. If you've enjoyed today's discussion, please like and share. And if you're feeling inspired, do leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. And of course, carry on the conversation online. Share your thoughts, experiences, and ideas using #HonestlySpeakingSL. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay honest.